divisions to watch, I would say. A lot of great teams in that division, a lot of great players to watch in that division. And we'll start it off. We're going to break down all of the teams in each division before we give our full predictions on their record and where they're going to end up in the playoffs, or if they may not even make the playoffs. We're just going to break down everything that these teams did to either improve or to stand pat and do nothing in this recent offseason. So we'll start with the Braves. The Braves, they did a plethora of things to improve their team. And one thing I want to highlight is that they really locked down that bullpen. They went out and they signed Colin McHugh, who had a tremendous year for the Tampa Bay Rays last year. They got Darren O'Day, a familiar face with the Atlanta Braves. He was pretty good for the Yankees until he got hurt. They also went out and got Kirby Yates, who we haven't seen since 2019. Still a very solid pitcher when he is on the field. And the big one that they got to really lock down those games in the ninth inning, they took the Dodgers closer away from LA, and they brought in Kenley Jansen, one of the better closers of this generation, really, really doing a great job to make sure that bullpen is lights out as it was in the 2021 postseason. They also went out and they got a backup catcher in Manny Pena to back up Travis d'Arnaud. And they filled the Freddie Freeman hole very quickly. And they got probably the second best option that you can get in terms of being behind Freeman. And that's Matt Olsen. They went out and got him from the Oakland Athletics. This Braves team, they look very good. They look very similar, maybe even a little better than they did last year when they won the World Series. Now, some guys that they lost some bullpen guys in Chris Martin and Richard Rodriguez, but they added 4 very solid arms that could easily take the spot of both of those players. They also lost some outfield depth in Jorge Soler and Jock Peterson, 2 postseason heroes. But you know what? That's not too bad of a loss for the Braves. As I said, this team, they look very, very good as of right now. And the big one, obviously, they lost Freddie Freeman, their face of the franchise. He had been there for his entire career, and he decided to go to Los Angeles. Freddie and the Braves, they couldn't work it out. And, it's unfortunate to see. Freddie was a guy that I thought, he would be a Brave for life, as I mentioned in our recent episodes. Andrew, you even said he was going to go to the Dodgers, and that's exactly what he did. And we'll get into the Dodgers in a little bit. But Freddie Freeman out in Atlanta, but Matt Olsen in at Atlanta. And this Braves team, they look really good. They still have a great roster after losing Freeman, and they're definitely threats to defend their championship crown.
Yeah, well, I think this team definitely had one of the best seasons for sure. I know Braves fans were really mad about Freeman leaving. Olsen, like you said, was a great replacement. And they're getting Acuna back too in a month, which is going to be huge for this team, considering they won the World Series without him. And they were pretty for the first half, around 500. And I just really think this year is going to be a huge year for the Braves. Like, they showed it in the World Series, but they're going to be a better regular season team this year.
Yeah, I got to agree with you there, Andrew. Definitely. Acuna, he fills that outfield depth that they lost in Soler and Peterson. And, you can kind of expect what you're going to get out of him. It's going to be good. It's going to be really good stuff. And as I said, I think this team can definitely make a run at going back to back. But moving on, we're going to go to another team in the National League East, and that is the New York Mets, one of the loudest teams of this offseason. Made a whole bunch of moves, really improved this team. Unfortunately, some things have gone down since those moves, and it probably has impacted my decision and where I'm going to rank them when we finish up talking about the entire NL East here. But nevertheless, still great moves. They went out. They also touched on the bullpen. They got Adam Ottavino, and they acquired Joely Rodriguez just a few days ago from the Yankees. 2 really solid bullpen arms to have in the fold there. They got some really good depth pieces in Mark Canha and Eduardo Escobar. And now Escobar may not even be a depth piece. He may even be the starting third baseman. I believe he was. JD Davis now becomes that depth piece for the Mets. So really good options to have in Canha and Escobar. And then the 3 big ones I have, Starling Marte, they went out, they got the best center fielder that was on the market this year for free agency. They went out and did what they had to do to get him. Really good bat, still can fly in his mid to late 30s, can really, really be a productive player for this Mets team. And then the big one, the 2 biggest ones, in my opinion, Chris Bassett and Max Scherzer. Max Scherzer obviously being the biggest of the 2, but Chris Bassett and Max Scherzer just makes this rotation the best in baseball, and there's really no debate. DeGrom, Scherzer, Bassett, Walker, Carrasco, Tyler McGill. You can keep going. They have so many options they can use in this rotation, and they already used one in McGill when DeGrom went down and he couldn't start opening day, and they won. So already day one, this team is showing that they have a legit pitching staff, and they're going to use it in every way, shape, and form that they can. Now they did lose some guys, but their additions kind of offset these subtractions, in my opinion. They lost Michael Conforto, still hasn't signed anywhere. Kind of surprising. You would think he may take a 1-year deal somewhere, but it's just not the case. Don't really know what's going on there, but he is no longer in New York. They lost Javier Baez, Kevin Pillar, Jonathan VR, guys that were Pillar and VR, guys that were really good depth pieces to have. But I see Escobar and Canna as upgrades from them too. And then Baez, he was a deadline acquisition that just ended up not working out in the Mets' favor. So you know what? It happens. And sometimes it doesn't work. They lost Rich Hill, Noah Syndergaard, and Marcus Stroman, three solid arms that the Mets had in the rotation. Syndergaard, not so much. He had been plagued with injuries over the last couple seasons, but still, we all know the potential that Noah Syndergaard has and the performances that he has shown as being an elite starting pitcher. And they lost some more bullpen in Brad Hand and Aaron Loop. But once again, they were able to act quickly and fill those holes. Now, I see the Mets, they lost a lot, as I just mentioned, but they added the pieces that they really needed. And Steve Cohen and his administration, they did a really good job in filling those holes. The rotation, as I said, it easily becomes the best in baseball. It really is not an argument with that. However, DeGrom is going to miss some significant time, and I do think that's going to end up hurting them in those September games where they can't win in April and May because they don't have DeGrom. Those games are going to come back and bite the Mets. But this team is still going to be very good, and it should be very fun to watch.
Yeah, what you said about the DeGrom injury is obviously going to hurt a lot, but I think this team is going to be fine. Like last year when DeGrom went down, they didn't really have the rotation stability to cover. But now with guys like Max Scherzer and Chris Bassett, top of the rotation, those are two aces right there. Scherzer is obviously one of the best pitchers in baseball. And then with all the moves they did to really make sure that this lineup will be consistent and good. Last year, it was really unlucky for the Mets. They had pretty much every single hitter in their lineup underperform, besides maybe Pete Alonso. But this year, the lineup's even better. It's more balanced, and it's just a better overall team. So I'd be very excited if I was a Mets fan.
I would be too, Andrew. It's definitely exciting for the city of New York. You got two good teams in New York. Should be a really fun season to watch in the Big Apple. Moving on to the Phillies now, though. Now, I really do like what the Phillies did with their team. It wasn't, I mean, it was a big offseason for them, especially towards the end. I wish that they had added another starting pitcher, but they added two areas that were of significant need in the offseason. And first off, bullpen. They went out, they got Brad Hand, Jerry's Familia, Corey Knebel. Three guys that you can maybe trust in Brad Hand and Familia. That's a maybe. But Knebel, season that he had put up with the Dodgers and the years prior, and we can even go a little further when he was with the Brewers, he has shown that he is still a very good pitcher and that he can lock it down when need be in that bullpen. So we'll see what you can get out of Brad Hand and Familia. But Knebel, I do really like that move by Dombrowski. And this team will be better. They will be better than they were last year. Hopefully that these bullpen additions will be a big factor in that. But the two big ones, Kyle Schwaber and Nick Castellanos, already doing damage as Kyle Schwaber led off the game for the Phillies on opening day against Oakland with the home run. That's exactly what they wanted. That's exactly what they needed. They needed that production in the leadoff spot. They need that production all around. This team is going to score more runs now that you have 6 bats instead of 4 good bats in Schwaber and Castellanos. Just adds so much more depth to this lineup that you could do. So Joe Girardi can do so much with this lineup from 1 through 6. It really will depend on who's hot and who's not at the time, but there will be guys that are going to be hot when they need to be hot. They may not all be hot at the same time, but they got the bats that they needed. And I applaud the Phillies for doing that because they will score more runs. And Philly fans, may not be out of third place yet, but you will be better than just a 500 ball club. I'll tell you that right now. Now they did lose some bullpen guys in Archie Bradley, Hector Neris, and Ian Kennedy, but they did their best to fill those holes, and we will see what happens down the stretch for the Phils. They also lost Brad Miller. I know he's a Philly favorite. He was very good for the Phillies during his time there. He goes to Texas, and they lost Andrew McCutchen. He decided to go to Milwaukee. The Phillies decided not to pick up his option, and that was the end of Andrew McCutchen's tenure in Philadelphia. But still a very good offseason for the Phillies. Like I said, they lost bullpen arms, but they added pretty solid ones. And the two major bats, those are the highlights of the offseason. So expect more runs there and expect more excitement out of this Phillies ball club.
Yeah, I think this Phillies ball club, like you said, the offense is insane. But one thing is, I think they might have forgotten about the third aspect of the game, fielding. Their outfield, Schwaber.
It's a tough one, yeah.
Schwaber, Castellanos, Harper, three of the worst defensive outfielders in the league. And I think that's going to cost them some games. It's still a very good overall team. The rotation for Wheeler and Nola, I think it'll be fine because they're two high case strikeout guys. The guys like Gibson and Ranger Suarez, they could have a bit of trouble, and that could lead to losing some games. But yeah, overall, the Phillies, I'd say it was a good offseason for them.
Definitely. Good job by Dave Dombrowski and the Philadelphia Phillies for doing what they could to bring the guys that they needed in to Philadelphia. Now moving on to Miami down south, South Beach. Miami, they were in the news a lot pre-lockout, and then post-lockout, we have the unfortunate departure of Derek Jeter with the Marlins, and it kind of set the tone for the rest of the offseason, with the exception of one more move that they did make that we will mention. But this team, they looked like they were going all in. They were in on Castellanos, missed on him, but they made some moves in the beginning that were like, wow, this team really, they're trying to make a push. And then it just kind of fizzled out, and they're going to be stuck. They may be a little better than they were last year, but I feel like they may be stuck in this kind of position where they're not going to propel forward enough to make this an excellent offseason. It's good offseason, not an excellent offseason. So now they upgraded their backstop, got Jacob Stallings, gold gloving catcher, really solid option to have. Not too much thump with the bat, but he can give you some production that you need. The main priority there is the defense. Very solid catcher to have. They got a utility man in Joey Wendell from Tampa Bay. Very, very solid pickup there. Likes to hit the ball to all fields, and he can play a plethora of positions, including the outfield and the entire infield. Then they spent big and went out and got Avisail Garcia from the Milwaukee Brewers, a really solid bat, a pretty good defender to have in right field for the Marlins. And then the last move that they made, they went out and signed Jorge Soler. Now that's a really good bat to have. The defense, it's a little questionable, but the season that he put up last year between Kansas City and Atlanta was definitely worth the money that he got. And another bat that should be a pretty exciting point for the Marlins. Lots to look up here. We'll see how it all pans out. The young pitching, as we know, that'll definitely be a headline for this team. They really only had one big subtraction, and it was Jorge Alfaro, their starting catcher, who was replaced by someone who is better than him. So it's not too big of a subtraction, but the Marlins, they only got better, in my opinion, and they seriously improved the lineup that needed a lot of help, and it's going to have the help that it needs. Derek Jeter's departure, it will be a major storyline all year, but hopefully Miami plays at a level where they're showing a lot of improvement. So that story won't really be all over the place as to why the Marlins are the way that they are. Hopefully that will be the case, but I do expect the Marlins to be better. They're just not quite there yet.
Yeah, I think the Marlins will be better. Your pitching is very good, as we've discussed before. The lineup is not that great, but they did make marginal. I think you said they very good upgrades. Guys like Joey Wendell and Avisail Garcia aren't really gonna boost your runs per game that much, I'd say. But the rotation, I do like. The top three: Sandy Alcantara, Pablo Lopez, Trevor Rogers. That's one of the best top threes in the league. And they also have a very deep bullpen. Guys, very underrated arms: Anthony Bender, Cole Sulser, Richard Blyer. So I think it's going to be a team that's going to play a lot of low-scoring games, as they did in 2020 when they made the playoffs. But I can't see them improving that much on the record last year.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to make a significant step forward. I think it will be maybe by a few games. I think Avisail Garcia and Jorge Soler will provide a little bit more thump that they will need to win some games. This team is not a playoff team, but maybe, just maybe, they may be going in the right direction. So we'll wait and see. Last team, though, in the National League East, and that's the Washington Nationals. Now, this team, they're rebuilding. That's clear. They're going to build around Juan Soto. They did add some bats and even some arms that they could potentially flip to at the deadline and maybe load up that farm system a little more to add to this rebuild. So the biggest addition for the Nationals, that was Nelson Cruz. He came in. It was a complete surprise. Everyone thought it was down to the Padres and Dodgers. He decided he wanted to go to Washington. So he ends up there in DC. They also got second baseman Cesar Hernandez. Those are two guys that were both flipped at the deadline last year and could very likely be flipped for some value if they continue to play at the level that they did last season. Now, some other bullpen arms that they, some more bullpen arms that they added, Sean Doolittle, Steve Cishek, and a plethora of other guys. It was just, the list was just too long to type all in one go around. But Sean Doolittle, he comes back to Washington, and Steve Cishek, he's a very serviceable veteran relief pitcher. And all four of the guys that I just mentioned, I could definitely see them all being flipped. Really, that's as much as I can get out of this offseason for the Nationals. They went out and spent a little bit of money in hopes to build this farm system for the future. Now, the subtraction, the one and only, they lost their main man, the guy that started it all, and that's Ryan Zimmerman, Mr. National. Now, is that a huge subtraction? No, but he was the franchise's first draft pick, and he did end up winning a World Series. Great career for Mr. Zimmerman. Wish him all the best. But other than that, the Nationals didn't really lose anything. They only added, and they won't be good this year. We'll just put it that way. They're not going to be the team that they were in 2019. They will probably be the team closer to what they were last year when they just tore it all down and decided to rebuild. They'll probably stay around that level for the entire season, and that's okay. You have a young star on your hands that you want to make sure you get it right, because for Harper, when he was that young star, they tried what they could and they couldn't get it right. They couldn't win with him. He's out. Soto comes in. Instantly, they won. They took those pieces that they had around Harper and they won with Soto. So I can only see that happening again. It's going to take some time, and I think the Nationals need to act quickly. They need to lock down Soto. There have been speculations about his current extension status. It's not going to happen now, and we'll have to wait and see. He's only 23 years old, so there is some time, but they do have a lot to work with, and they should be exciting down the road. Just this year, it's not going to be their year. So,
yeah, I think the way, like you mentioned, this bullpen is constructed very well, much better than previous years. And the lineup, it can definitely be carried by Soto, Bell, Nelson Cruz. Nelson Cruz probably going to be flipped, but the rotation is just really going to tank this team. Their ace is Patrick Corbin, who had over a 5 ERA last year, one of the worst years of any starting pitcher. And then it's just filled out by guys like Eric Fetty, Joe Ross, and Steven Strasburg, who are currently hurt. And I just can't see this team going anywhere. But for Nationals fans, the future is bright. They have guys like Josiah Gray, Keeper Ruiz waiting. Keeper both on the team this year. So there is reasons to watch this team, but not going to come anywhere close to playoffs this year.
So now we are going to give our predictions, and I'll start it off. Taking home the National League East crown, I have the Atlanta Braves at 94-68. In the number 2 spot, I have the New York Mets at 92-70. They'll sneak in as a wild card team. In third place, I have the Philadelphia Phillies at 87-75. They will unfortunately miss the cut, but definitely a step forward after a big offseason in Philly. I got the Marlins in fourth at 75-87. And to round out the National League East, I have the Nationals at 70-92.
So I have the Mets at 100 wins. At first place. Second place, I have the Braves at 92-70. Third, I have the Phillies at 86 and 76, and the Marlins at 77, 85, and then the Nationals at 72 and 90.
That's solid. And we'll move right on to the National League Central. Andrew, why don't you take us through the National League Central for 2022?
So the last year, everyone knows Brewers won it. They're going to be the first team we discuss here. They added Hunter Renfroe